The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning in March of 1879, and Eleanor Hartwell knew immediately what it meant. Her mother had been corresponding with Western men again, placing advertisements in frontier newspapers, trying to find someone, anyone, who would take Eleanor off their hands and relieve the family of the embarrassment of having an unmarried daughter approaching spinsterhood. Eleanor was 23 years old, the middle daughter of the prominent Hartwell family of Boston. Her older sister, Victoria, was a celebrated beauty who had married a wealthy banker 3 years prior in a wedding that was the talk of society for months. Her younger sister, Charlotte, was delicate and charming, with porcelain skin and golden curls, already engaged to a promising young lawyer from a good family. And then there was Eleanor, plain, practical, serious, and according to her mother, completely unmarriageable despite their best efforts. "Eleanor, come here immediately," her mother called from the parlor, her voice carrying that particular tone of forced pleasantness that meant something unpleasant was about to happen. "We have received a response to one of the advertisements." Eleanor carefully marked her place in the book she had been reading, a treatise on modern agricultural methods that she had found fascinating, and went to face whatever fate her family had arranged for her this time. Her mother sat in her usual chair by the window, the letter spread across her silk-clad lap, her father standing beside her with his perpetually disappointed expression that he seemed to reserve especially for Eleanor, a Mr. James Thornton of Wyoming. "Territory has responded to our inquiry," her mother announced, as if she were discussing a business transaction rather than her daughter's future. "He owns a cattle ranch of some significant size and is looking for a practical wife to help manage his household and assist with the administrative aspects of his operation. He specifically stated in his letter that he is not interested in delicate or overly refined women. He wants someone capable and strong." Her mother's tone made it abundantly clear what she thought of this requirement. In her world, in the world of Boston's upper society, being called capable or strong rather than beautiful or charming or delicate was not a compliment, but rather an insult, a suggestion that one had failed at the primary purpose of being a woman. "He has sent funds sufficient for travel expenses and has agreed to marry you upon your arrival in Wyoming," her father added, pulling an envelope from his vest pocket. "This is likely the best offer you will receive, Eleanor, given your particular situation. I strongly suggest you accept it with gratitude." Eleanor looked at the letter in her mother's hands, at the neat, practical handwriting that spelled out her future in clear, straightforward language. Part of her wanted to refuse outright, to insist that she would rather remain unmarried in her family's home than go to a complete stranger thousands of miles away. But she knew the truth that no one would speak aloud. Her family wanted her gone. They saw her as a burden, a failure, a plain daughter who had somehow failed to attract any of the suitable men in Boston society, despite their considerable efforts and expenditures. "May I read the letter myself?" Eleanor asked quietly. Her mother handed it over with visible reluctance, as if Eleanor did not deserve even that small courtesy, as if her opinion on her own future was merely an inconvenient formality. Eleanor read James Thornton's words carefully, analyzing every sentence. He wrote plainly and directly, with none of the flowery language that was fashionable in correspondence. He explained that he had built a successful ranch over the past decade through hard work and careful management, but that he needed help managing the household and the increasingly complex administrative side of the operation. He was completely honest about the difficulties involved: the hard work, the isolation, the harsh weather, the absence of the cultural refinements Eleanor would be accustomed to in Boston. He made no promises of romance or luxury or easy living, only respect, fair treatment, and a genuine partnership in building something lasting. "He sounds reasonable and honest," Eleanor said quietly after finishing the letter. "Reasonable is all you can hope for at this point," her mother replied sharply. "Eleanor, you must face facts. Your sisters are beauties who made excellent matches with prominent men. You are not beautiful, and no amount of expensive dresses or careful presentation has changed that fundamental reality. You are 23 years old. You must accept the opportunities that are actually available to you, not hold out hope for something better that will never come." Eleanor had heard variations of this message her entire life. repeated so often that it had become an accepted truth, an unquestionable fact about her existence. She was too tall, standing at 5 feet 8 inches, when fashionable women were supposed to be petite and delicate. She was too serious, preferring substantive conversation about politics, science, and literature to the light flirtation that was expected. She was too plain, with unremarkable features, straight brown hair that refused to hold elaborate curls, brown eyes that were neither strikingly dark nor interestingly light, a face that was neither beautiful nor ugly but simply ordinary. She preferred reading to endless embroidery, had strong opinions on current events that she sometimes forgot to keep to herself, and had never mastered the art of flirtatious conversation that came so naturally to her sisters. "I will go," Eleanor said, because what other realistic choice did she have? Remaining in her family's home as an unwanted spinster, a constant reminder of failure and disappointment. That seemed worse than taking a chance on an unknown future in Wyoming. 3 weeks later, after hurried preparations and farewells that were more relieved than sad, Eleanor stood on the train platform in Cheyenne, Wyoming territory, clutching a single well-worn carpet bag that contained all her worldly possessions. Her family had not been generous in outfitting her for her new life, providing only practical day dresses, basic undergarments, and a few personal items. There was no trousseau filled with beautiful nightgowns and fancy dresses, no hope chest full of linens and household items, nothing that suggested a real wedding or a valued daughter. Just the bare minimum necessary for respectability. A man approached her, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing practical work clothes and a wide-brimmed hat that shaded his face. He was perhaps 30 years old, with dark hair and a weathered, sun-browned face that suggested years of outdoor work in harsh conditions. As he got closer, Eleanor could see that he had kind eyes, a strong jaw, and an air of quiet competence. "Miss Hartwell?" he asked, removing his hat respectfully. "Yes. Mr. Thornton, I presume?" "Yes, ma'am. Welcome to Wyoming territory. I hope your journey was not too difficult or uncomfortable." Eleanor studied him carefully, trying to gauge what kind of man he truly was beneath the polite formality. His eyes were kind, she thought, and his manner genuinely respectful rather than merely dutiful. The journey was quite long but manageable. "Thank you for asking. I have a wagon waiting just over there. It is about a 2-hour drive to the ranch, depending on the condition of the roads. I thought we could talk on the way, get to know each other a bit before the wedding this evening." "That seems eminently sensible," Eleanor agreed, appreciating his practical approach. As they rode through the vast Wyoming landscape, so dramatically different from the cramped, crowded streets of Boston, James asked Eleanor questions about her journey, her family, her life back east. Eleanor answered honestly, not trying to present herself as something she was not or hide the truth of her situation. "My family was quite eager for me to marry and move away," Eleanor said frankly, deciding that honesty was the best approach with this man who would soon be her husband. "I am what they call the plain daughter, Mr. Thornton. My older sister Victoria is a great beauty who married very well. My younger sister Charlotte is lovely and charming and engaged to a promising attorney. And then there is me, too tall, too serious, too ordinary-looking, too opinionated. I am the daughter who failed to make an advantageous match despite their considerable efforts." "Why do you say you are plain?" James asked, glancing at her with what seemed like genuine confusion rather than polite disagreement. "Because I am," Eleanor said simply, stating what she had been told was an objective fact. "I have been told so my entire life by people who should know. I do not have my sister's charms or beauty. I am too serious, too practical, too everything that women are not supposed to be." James was quiet for a long moment, his attention seemingly on guiding the horses. Then he spoke carefully. "Miss Hartwell, I want to be completely honest with you about my expectations and motivations. I did not advertise for a wife because I wanted a beautiful woman to decorate my parlor or serve as an ornament at social gatherings. I wanted a genuine partner. Someone intelligent and capable who could help me build something lasting and meaningful. Someone who could manage the complex aspects of running a large ranch. From your letters, which were articulate and thoughtful, you seemed like that person." "I can work very hard, Mr. Thornton," Eleanor assured him. I can manage a household efficiently, keep detailed accounts, help with whatever needs doing. I will earn my keep and justify your investment in bringing me here. You will not regret this arrangement. I am sure I will not, James said. But Eleanor, if I may call you that, I want you to understand something important. This is not merely a business arrangement to me, not just hiring a housekeeper or administrator. I am looking for a wife, a true wife, not simply an employee. I hope we can build a real partnership, develop genuine respect and friendship, maybe even affection over time. Eleanor felt something she had not felt in years, genuine hope. I would like that very much. They were married that evening in a simple ceremony performed by the local preacher in his modest church. There were no guests, no celebration, no wedding breakfast or reception, just two practical people making a serious commitment to try to build a life together. Eleanor wore her best dress, which was plain but clean and well-made. James wore a suit that looked new, and Eleanor appreciated that he had made an effort for the occasion. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, James kissed her gently and briefly, and Eleanor felt a flutter of something she could not quite name. James's ranch was far more impressive than Eleanor had expected from his modest description. The property stretched for miles in every direction, with healthy cattle grazing on good grassland, well-maintained fences, and several sturdy outbuildings. The house itself was substantial and well-built, 2 stories with a wide porch, constructed of solid timber and clearly built to last. You have built something remarkable here, Eleanor said with genuine admiration. I have worked hard, James acknowledged, but it is lonely work when you have no one to share it with. That is why I finally decided to seek a wife. He showed her around the property, explaining how the operation worked, introducing her to his small crew of ranch hands who seemed surprised but pleased that their boss had married. This is my wife, Eleanor, he said to each person, and there was unmistakable pride in his voice that surprised and touched her. That first night, James gave Eleanor the main bedroom, which was spacious and comfortable, and took a smaller room down the hall for himself. I thought you might want some time to adjust to your new situation, he explained with consideration that Eleanor had not expected. No pressure, no expectations beyond what you are comfortable with. We can take this marriage at whatever pace feels right to you. Over the following weeks, Eleanor threw herself into her new role with characteristic determination and efficiency. She organized the household, which had been run haphazardly by a series of temporary housekeepers with varying degrees of competence. She cleaned thoroughly, organized systematically, and created routines that made everything run more smoothly. She took over the ranch accounts, which had been kept in a somewhat chaotic manner, and discovered she had a real talent for numbers and financial organization. She learned about cattle breeding, horse care, market conditions, and all the complex rhythms of successful ranch life. But more than the work, more than the satisfying feeling of competence and usefulness, she found herself genuinely enjoying James's company. He was intelligent and thoughtful, well-read despite his isolated location, with a dry sense of humor that perfectly matched her own. He treated her with consistent respect and seemed genuinely interested in her opinions on everything from cattle breeding to current political events. He never once called her plain or made her feel inadequate or less than. He asked her advice and actually listened to her answers. He valued her contributions not as a kindness, but as genuine recognition of her capabilities. One evening, about 6 weeks after her arrival, they were sitting together on the porch watching a spectacular sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink when James spoke quietly. Eleanor, can I tell you something? Of course. You can tell me anything. When you stepped off that train in Cheyenne, I was genuinely terrified that you would be disappointed. That you would take one look at me and the ranch and want to immediately return to Boston and civilization. Eleanor looked at him in genuine surprise. Why on earth would I be disappointed? This ranch is magnificent, far more successful and substantial than your letters suggested. Because I am just a rancher, James said. Rough around the edges, not refined or educated in the formal sense. I have dirt under my fingernails most of the time. I smell like horses and cattle. And you are from Boston, from a prominent family, cultured and educated. I worried constantly that I would not be good enough, that I would disappoint you. James, Eleanor said, her voice filled with emotion. My family sent me away specifically because they thought I was not good enough for Boston society. They were genuinely relieved to be rid of me. They saw me as a failure and an embarrassment. Then your family is blind and foolish, James said firmly with an intensity that startled her. Eleanor, you are quite possibly the smartest person I have ever met. You have taken my chaotic household and made it run with impressive efficiency. You have completely reorganized my accounting system and found ways to save significant amounts of money. You work harder than any of my ranch hands. You have ideas for improvements that I never would have considered. You are absolutely remarkable. Eleanor felt tears pricking at her eyes, hot and unexpected. No one has ever called me remarkable before. No one has ever valued me the way you do. Then no one has been paying proper attention, James said. He reached over and took her hand gently. Eleanor, I know we married quickly, out of practical necessity and mutual need, but I want you to know, I am grateful every single day that you answered my advertisement. You are not what I expected when I wrote that letter. You are infinitely better. Better in what way? Eleanor asked, needing to understand. I expected capable, and you are indeed capable. I expected practical, and you are practical. But you are also kind and thoughtful and funny. You challenge me to think differently about things I thought I understood. You make this house feel like a true home rather than just a place to sleep between work. And Eleanor, I think you are genuinely beautiful. You do not have to say that, Eleanor said, looking away, unable to accept what seemed like an obvious kindness rather than truth. I know what I look like. I have mirrors. I know I am plain. James gently turned her face back toward him, his hand warm against her cheek. You have an honest face, Eleanor. Strong, intelligent features. When you concentrate on the account books, you get this little crease between your eyebrows that I find endearing. When you smile, which is happening more and more often now, your whole face transforms and lights up. That is beautiful to me. Not delicate beauty that needs constant protection and careful handling, but real, substantial beauty that comes from character and strength and authenticity. Eleanor had spent her entire life being told she was plain, being compared unfavorably to her prettier sisters, being made to feel that her very existence was somehow a disappointment. But looking into James's eyes now, she saw genuine admiration and attraction, and something even more, the unmistakable beginning of real love. I think you are handsome, Eleanor said shyly, allowing herself to be vulnerable, and kind, and far more than I hoped for when I boarded that train. I expected duty and obligation. I found partnership and respect. That means everything to me. James leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted, and kissed her gently. This kiss was different from the brief, formal kiss at their wedding. This kiss held promise and genuine feeling. Eleanor felt something she had never felt before in her entire life. Truly wanted, genuinely chosen, deeply valued for exactly who she actually was. Their marriage grew stronger and deeper over the months and years that followed. They worked side by side every day, building the ranch into one of the most successful and respected operations in the entire territory. Eleanor's organizational skills and business acumen combined perfectly with James's ranching expertise and knowledge of cattle. They made decisions together, respected each other's opinions, and built something far greater than either could have built alone. They had 4 children over the years, 3 daughters and a son, each one loved and valued. Eleanor made absolutely sure that each of her daughters knew they were valued for their character, their intelligence, their kindness, not their physical appearance. She made equally sure that her son understood that a woman's worth had nothing whatsoever to do with how she looked. 5 years after Eleanor arrived in Wyoming, her sister Victoria came for an extended visit, bringing her banker husband and their 2 young children. Victoria had been considered the great beauty of the Hartwell family, the one who had made the most advantageous match, the daughter who had fulfilled all their mother's ambitions and expectations. But seeing her now, Eleanor saw something quite different, a woman who seemed tired and fundamentally unhappy, married to a man who treated her as a beautiful possession to be displayed rather than a person to be known and valued. You seem genuinely happy here." Victoria observed one evening as they sat together on the porch, watching the sun set over the mountains. "I confess I expected to find you miserable, stuck on a ranch in the middle of nowhere, far from civilization and culture." "I love it here," Eleanor said with complete honesty. "I have real purpose and meaningful work. I have responsibilities that matter. And I have James, who truly values me for who I actually am, not who he wishes I would be." "Does he really not care that you are not beautiful in the conventional sense?" Victoria asked, and there was genuine curiosity in her voice rather than the cruelty that had characterized their mother's similar observations. "He thinks I am beautiful," Eleanor replied simply. "Not in the way Boston society defines beauty, perhaps. But he sees me, really truly sees me, and finds genuine value and attractiveness in what he sees. That means infinitely more than conventional beauty ever could." Victoria was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the darkening landscape. "My husband married me specifically for my beauty. He shows me off at parties and social gatherings like a prized possession or a valuable painting. But he does not truly know me, Eleanor. After 5 years of marriage, he does not know what I think about anything important, what I dream about, what I fear, what I hope for. He only knows what I look like. And now that I am older and have had children, now that my beauty is fading as beauty inevitably does, I can see him losing interest." "I am so sorry," Eleanor said, and she genuinely meant it. "Do not be sorry," Victoria replied with a sad smile. "I made my choice based on what I thought mattered. You made your choice based on something deeper. I think you chose far more wisely than I did." Years later, when Eleanor was old and her hair had turned silver and her face had acquired the lines and character that come with a life well lived, her grandchildren would ask her about how she had met their grandfather. She would tell them the complete truth about being called the plain daughter, about being sent west because no one in Boston society wanted her, about feeling like a failure and a disappointment. "But Grandma, you are not plain at all," her granddaughters would always protest. "You are beautiful." "That depends entirely on who is doing the looking," Eleanor would reply with the wisdom of experience. "To my family in Boston, I was plain because I did not fit their very narrow and limited definition of what beauty should be. But to your grandfather, I was exactly what he wanted, not in spite of who I was, but precisely because of it." She would smile, remembering those early days. "The greatest gift your grandfather ever gave me was not this ranch or this comfortable life, though those things are wonderful. The greatest gift was that he truly saw me. He really looked at me and saw who I actually was. And what he saw was worth loving, worth choosing, worth building a life with," James would add, sitting beside her as he always did, even after 50 years of marriage. "Your grandmother was the only face I wanted to see every morning and every evening for the rest of my life. And 50 years later, that is still absolutely true. Not because she fits some conventional standard of beauty, but because she is beautiful to me in all the ways that actually matter. And that is all that has ever mattered. Because sometimes being called plain is just another way of saying you do not fit someone else's narrow, limited standards. Sometimes being unwanted and undervalued by one group means you are exactly right for another. And sometimes the face that everyone else overlooks and dismisses is the only face someone else wants to see for the rest of their life. The face that means home and love and everything that truly matters. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more tales of finding worth beyond appearances and being valued for who you truly are. Comment below about what this story meant to you. Thank you for listening and for believing that true beauty lies in being seen and valued for your authentic self.